Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean. I'm coming at you today with another video that is me rambling. Not so much whiskey ramblings this time, just kind of a early morning, got up early, waiting for my fiance to wake up, and I figured I'd share some stories with you from my own life. I had considered posting these stories to my own subreddit, r/Mr. Sean Reads Stories, but I figured I'd just kind of wing it and see where it goes, because I do sometimes like this more rambling style of storytelling. Today's stories will be from the 2 years that I spent running various gas stations around the state of Ohio, but before we get to those, let me tell you about my business. At Chimera Miniatures, we strive to bring you the most unique miniatures on the planet. Unlike some miniature makers who just 3D print minis and then paint them or send them to you to paint, Chimera Miniatures, we kit bash miniatures from the bits and pieces of other miniatures into something completely unique. Think Sid from Toy Story, but more or less macabre depending on what you're looking for. We also do not safe for work repaints of miniatures if that's what your thing is. My current stock on eBay is offered at a very reasonable price, as it is some of my older stock and I am trying to move it, but don't worry, there will be brand new items coming very soon. I have an Etsy page as well that offers the same miniatures, but with what's going on with Etsy's bank right now, I'm not entirely sure people that are selling on Etsy are getting paid, so I don't know if that's where you want to go, plus the price is cheaper on eBay at the moment. Sorry if my voice is a little weird, I'm really hoping the citric acid cuts through the morning flump. And without further ado, let's talk about gas stations. Story number 1 is more of an amalgamation of shorter stories because they all center around one theme. That theme is, of course, the age-restricted items that we sell at the gas station. You might think that the gas station's bread and butter as far as profit goes is the actual gas it's selling. You would be incorrect. We make our money off of cigarette sales and beer and lottery. And because gas stations in general are kind of seen as a seedier, less scrupulous, staffed by people who don't give a shit, it is a place that kids especially try to buy things underage or without the proper identification. I do not know if this is all over the US, but shortly after I started working, like in the first year that I worked at the gas station, Ohio changed its laws so that not only is alcohol 21 and over, but also all nicotine products are also 21 and over. And during this transition, it was really weird because several areas and cities in Ohio preemptively upped their age to 21 while others didn't. So you could go across the river, you could drive 10 minutes in one direction, and you could be at a gas station from the same chain that I worked for that you could buy tobacco at age 18, but you drive 10 minutes over to my store and you weren't allowed. It was very confusing to people, and also it was just one of those things that people were one, confused, but also others were trying to take advantage of that confusion to hopefully get their sweet, sweet cigs. So the first part of this story does center around people using fake IDs, or at the very least attempting to. We used to have this girl come into the store. She came in all the time. Her ID was fake. It would not scan because she cheaped out. And we would always deny her sales. And she would look at me and go, I'm here all the time. And I'd look at her and go, well, yeah, I know you're here all the time. I deny you cigarettes on a weekly basis. Like, God bless her for trying, but if she really was of age, she would have just gone somewhere else to get them. Now, I said she cheaped out on her ID because we had several fake IDs that we knew actually would scan if we tried to scan it, because these kids, this was in Powell, Ohio, which is a somewhat affluent suburb of Columbus, and kids there have mommy and daddy's money, so they can afford to buy the good fake IDs that they buy over from China that actually, if you scan their barcode, it will come up as accurate. So it wasn't enough to just scan an ID. We had to actually be vigilant, look at the person, and make a judgment call. Like, I had a group of girls come in that all had IDs that would have scanned perfectly fine had I scanned them, but here's the thing, they were all wearing their high school track uniforms. Like, they had just come from Saturday morning practice, and yeah, they might have been 18, but we were a 21 area. Also, what kind of track star is gonna be smoking cigarettes? That's just dumb. Like, we're told to look as a seller of tobacco and alcohol, we're told to look for kids trying to dress older than they are. Like, that's one of the red flags. If someone looks really young but is dressed really nice, like, you know, they're just coming home from the office job, that's probably a kid that, it could be a baby face, but it's probably a kid just trying to look older. These kids didn't even try. They were so confident in their fake IDs that they figured they could show up wearing their high school uniforms and still get away with it. Now, if we chose to contact the police about these fake IDs, that's a very serious crime, having a fake government ID. It's very serious in the States, if you didn't know that. So some of these companies that make these will have slight imperfections, which the idea is you can, if someone doesn't catch this, or if they do, if they catch the ID, you can go, oh hey, it's just a joke. Like if you've seen those fake IDs that like the Smithsonian used to sell that said that was like of James Bond or something. So one of the ways they'll do this is that they'll misspell something. And so you gotta look for that. My favorite was probably the time a kid came in with a license that said he was from Vermont. Yes, you heard that right, that's Vermont, but with a little-known Old English A instead of an O. That was funny enough, but the fact that he then tried to go, oh, well, it must have just been something that, my local DMV messed up, as if somehow Vermont is going to print their own name wrong. Like, dude, you got caught, just take the loss. Now, I do not know if it is this strict in other states, but one of the things in Ohio is even if I know that you are old enough to buy this product, if it becomes known that you do not have your ID on you, I am legally not allowed to sell it. I had an old guy, and by old guy I don't mean he was ancient, but I mean he was at the very least in his 50s, come up with a 6-pack of beer and start the conversation off by saying, hey man, I don't have my ID, but that's not a problem, right? And I wasn't gonna ID him. Like, he was well out of our, if they look under 30, check them. Like, under 30 is the rule. My store actually said if they look under 40, but this guy clearly was over 40. Like, I wasn't gonna ID him, but the fact that he told me that he didn't have an ID, I looked at him and I said, dude, all you had to say was nothing, but now that I know, I can't legally sell this to you. Now, he was a good sport about it. He came back the next day to buy some cigarettes with his ID, and we had a good laugh about it, but not everybody that happened to was so, jovial. And I guess the last part of this story is something that happened to me when I was still in training to be a gas station manager. So yeah, when I first became a gas station manager, they put me at a different gas station to train under one of their best managers. Now, I got used a little bit more like just an extra cashier during this training than I did actually learning how to be a gas station manager, but it is what it is. The company I worked for is shit, so whatever. So, this man comes up to the counter. He is a young black man that if I had to just take a guess, I would put to be in his early or mid-20s. Certainly under the 30, the looks 30 rule that our government has implied, and definitely under the 40 that the company has instated for how old they have to look before you don't have to check ID. He asks to buy some cigarettes. I get them from behind the counter for him and ask to see his ID. He doesn't have it on him, says it's in his car. He kind of begrudgingly gets out of line to go back and get it. Now, I keep ringing people out. I see him get back in line, and he happens to be right behind a woman who is clearly in her 80s. Now, the woman gets up to the counter. She asks for cigarettes. This is an 80-plus-year-old woman. I'm not gonna ID her. I get her cigarettes. I'm ringing her out, and from behind her, this guy loses his mind.
Hey man, why aren't you checking her ID?
Well sir, she happens to not be in the age range that we are told to check IDs for.
Not in the range? Not in the range? That's bullshit. She could be wearing a mask.
At this point, the little old lady kind of pipes in. I'm 87. I don't know if the guy heard her or not, because he keeps going.
Nuh-uh. This is bullshit. This is racist. This is racial profiling. This is bullshit. I just won't stand. I work. I'm 23. I have a job. Get me your manager.
So the guy claims, admits, what have you, that he's 23, which is well within the age of being carded. In fact, he's only 2 years past the age of being old enough to buy this stuff. But at this point, he's creating such a scene that the manager training me does come out to see what's going on. Now, this manager was a middle-aged black woman. She comes out to ask what's going on, and his face lights up because he thinks he's got me. He thinks that, looking at her and how she looks, that she's going to be on his side, that he's going to get this asshole white boy fired for daring to question how old he is. Because in his mind, the fact that I carded a young black man but not an ancient white woman has to be a racial thing and not just being able to identify an elderly person. If she had been a black, gray-haired grandma, I would not have carded her either. Because why? Because clearly she is old enough. But he, admittedly, he admitted the age he was saying he was, and I never actually got a look at his actual ID, but I assume he was being truthful. He was well within the age that he should have just expected to be carded. I got carded well into my 30s, and I'm a white guy, and we age way worse than black people do. Hashtag black don't crack. But yeah, back to the story. He thinks he's got me cornered. That all he has to do is claim racism, and my job is gone. So he tells her his side of the story. As you can guess, it was highly embellished and portrayed me in a less than favorable light. So she has me step to the side so she can take over the transaction.
I'm so sorry that happened to you, sir. Now if I could just see your ID, we can get you your cigarettes and get you on your way.
This guy loses his mind. He stops even talking to the manager. He's just yelling at me, who is now like 5 feet behind the manager, screaming, I'm 23, I work, I have a job, this is bullshit, I'm gonna kill you, you honky. Like, I forget what slurs he used against me, but he used a lot of them. Basically realizing that he's not gonna get anywhere with this manager, he decides to try and intimidate me, which I don't know what that was going to do, as I was no longer handling the transaction.
My apologies, sir, but as you are threatening my coworker, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
So the guy leaves, but a few minutes later comes back in looking very sheepish and defeated. If I had to guess, he called somebody he knew to bitch, and they told him he was being an idiot.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I would like to buy some cigarettes. Here's my identification.
I'm sorry, sir, but since you decided to threaten one of my coworkers, you are not welcome at this establishment. Please leave.
At this point, the guy loses his shit yet again, grabs our display of Bic lighters, hucks it across the gas station, runs out to his car that is idling just outside the entrance, speeds off, nearly hitting a pedestrian while he's doing it. We manage to get his license plate, we call the cops, and they go pay him a visit to tell him he is not to show up to that gas station anymore. And all of that happened because it was apparently racist for a white 30-year-old to ask a 23-year-old black man for his ID when he's buying products that you need to be 21 or older to buy. Like, guys, I don't care what race you are, what gender, what age, what your sexual preference is, what have you, as long as you are of the legal age to buy something, I will sell it to you, as I am a whore for commercialism. I am a slave of capitalism, alright? If you want to buy it, I want to sell it, and as long as the government isn't going to yell at me for selling it to you, I will sell it to you. No racism comes into play. Just show your ID, and you can have your nicotine. And while I hadn't worked at any other gas stations, I always got the sense that mine was a little stricter on the checking ID than others were because of something that had happened prior to my employment, which was a parent had caught their kid with cigarettes and alcohol, and when they asked where he got them, he said our store. Now, it was proven that he had not bought them from us. What we had not been able to prove, but what we knew is that the gas station down the street from a competing chain had an employee who was far less scrupulous. So he would sell kids cigarettes and beer, but of course when you get caught, you're not going to rat out that guy. You're not going to be the guy that ruins it for all the other kids. No, you're going to say some other nearby gas station and give your parents and the cops the runaround. So because we'd already been falsely accused, we certainly didn't want to be accurately accused, so we were harsh sticklers for the rule. Now, this occurred in the summer before lockdown, so there were rumors of the virus overseas, but it hadn't really hit the States yet. But everything was still open. Like, there was no reason you couldn't go to the BMV to get your license renewed or things like that. So I had a guy come in, and he asked for a certain brand of cigarettes, and it was a type that nobody ever buys. So it was very, you noticed it when he came in asking for them, because we never sold these things. He shows me his ID, and it's expired. Now, one of the big things in Ohio is, and I assume other states, is you have to have a valid, driver's license or form of identification for us to sell you these products. An expired license is not valid. So I tell him that I am not going to be able to sell him the cigarettes. He, of course, gets mad, going like, man, you can see that that's me. It's like, yeah, I can see that it's you. I can also see that you is expired, and I can't legally sell you these things. So he's mad, but he leaves. Then I see the girl that was also in the car with him, because we can see out the windows, guys. We can see you. She walks in, asks for the same cigarettes after he's left. I tell her that since I know she was with the guy that came in with the expired ID, it's still illegal for me to sell them to her, because she's technically, from what I can tell, buying them for someone else who is not legally allowed to buy them because he had an expired license. I'm still, legally on the hook for this transaction. She gets mad and goes, they're not even for him. And to my thought is, then why did you send the guy with the expired license in to get him? He comes back in to back her up. He's mad at me, and he goes, well, what am I supposed to do? And I go, well, sir, there's a BMV 5 minutes down the road. If you want to go get an updated license, I'll wait. At which point they left, and I did not see them again that day. It was both one of the most annoying but also funniest things we dealt with on a daily basis, was people trying to buy age-restrictive items without proper identification. I literally had someone tell me they had a picture of their ID on their phone, and would that work? I actually think it's kind of funny, because in all likelihood the reason we got so many is because of that rumor once we were falsely accused that we were the place for kids to go get alcohol and tobacco. A lot of dumb kids probably believed it and then thought they could just waltz on into my store and pick up whatever they wanted, when in reality, if they'd just driven 2 minutes down the road, that's where they wanted to go. But once one kid got caught, the people who knew where to go were probably a little more tight-lipped with that information. So guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed these stories. I have plenty more stories from the gas station, but those will have to be for another time. We have part 2 of 30 Years of Virgin coming out this Friday. I hope you'll give that a listen. If you haven't listened to part 1, please do. Also, still trying to get those 17 additional subscribers before the end of the month, so that we can be at 50 subscribers by the end of my birth month. My birthday's coming up here soon, and I would love it if for the month of March we could get up from 33 to 50 subscribers. So please like, comment, subscribe, and pass the video around so maybe we can get a few more subscribers. Again, just need 17 to get to that goal. And hey, until next time, guys, I'm Mr. Sean, this is Chimera Miniatures, and I hope you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.